Welcome back to Out of the Park Baseball. We are here with our Oakland A's entering the 2036 season, and it could very well be our last. John Fisher gave us a one-year extension, which is not exactly a vote of confidence in us after a disappointing 2035, so we have to do really well this year or else I'm gonna get fired. But before we get on with this season, let's do a quick recap of the offseason. Brady Harris was the best free agent available. He signed a 8-year deal with the Mets worth $296 million. That's a $37 million AAV, so he will leave the Tigers to become a New York Met. Dylan Cruz leaving the Nationals to become an Astro on a 4-year deal. The Mets also pick up Samuel Basallo, who signs the second large deal of his career after spending most of the last few years with Boston. Former Oakland A Cam Collier joins the Giants, and he will be among some other former Oakland A's. The Braves ended up signing the corner infielder Eiji Kawashima, coming to the United States from Japan on a 5-year deal. And finally, Woo-Suk Go, who's been one of the best relievers in this save, joins the Phillies on a 2-year deal, while 38-year-old Emmanuel Clase joins the Dodgers. The biggest trade news of the offseason is most likely Wyatt Langford leaving the Rangers to become a Detroit Tiger. I guess he replaces Harris in that regard. In return, the Rangers do receive 2 pretty good prospects in first baseman Dan Booth and right fielder Mike Murphy. We've got former Oakland A's being traded for one another. Mauricio Albaran traded for Dave Covert. Cole Young, who is a Mariners prospect in real life, goes from the Mets to the Cardinals. A 38-year-old Camilo Doval basically got salary dumped to the Mariners. The Marlins got Colt Keith from the Rangers for a decent prospect package. And in the final year of his deal before reaching free agency, Ken Pepin becomes a New York Yankee, although I've said this many times, he is the greatest pitcher in Colorado Rockies history. We'll have a full prospect check-in in a couple months into the season, but Ernesto Ulloa, who we just signed, is going to start in the international complex. In rookie ball, we got guys like the contact-oriented outfielder Shojiro Nakamura, now aged 19 years old. In A, we've got some of these guys. David Morrell makes the jump to A, as well as Alejandro Ambriz. In high, we've got a lot of the guys who we drafted, and that includes a pretty nice group of pitchers. Reto Hill, not from the most recent draft, but Ben Edmondson was. And then we've got Jake Clark, and then we've got Bobby Baker as well. Those were the first rounders from that same draft last year. And then in Double-A, we've got Ben Cowan and Eric Finch. Eric Finch is a pitcher I am excited about in particular. And then in Triple-A, you see some of the more big league ready guys, particularly Ian Kammmeyer and Pat Sievert. Those prospects give us the 15th ranked system in the league. Our overall farm quality has gone down a little bit over the past couple of years. We've traded a lot of guys for rentals and salary dump situations, but Nakamura, Ramos, Ambriz, and Morel are still a pretty solid core of guys to have in your farm system, although we did trade away Bustillos to the Phillies. And according to the preseason predictions, we are projected to finish at a perfectly .500 record of 81-81. Generally, we outperform this, but I'm curious to see by how much we can do that. Could we possibly compete with the Angels or the Astros for the division, or are we going to be stuck hoping for like a third wild card spot once again? We'll just have to see. Alex McDonald, your projected top hitter in the American League. RJ Kirshner, a great young talented starting pitcher for the White Sox, projected the best in the American League. Best team in the American League supposedly is going to be the Detroit Tigers despite losing Harris over the offseason. That'll be interesting. Best team in the National League projected to be the Mets. That's not surprising with some of the additions they've made. Jordan Walker, top projected hitter, and reigning Cy Young winner Tripp Jennings at the age of 24, top projected pitcher in the National League. So with that, we're finally ready for opening day 2036. We will be facing the Toronto Blue Jays, a team we're pretty familiar with. Chase Hampton on the mound for them against our Mike Drake. And this is a chance to really get a look at some of the guys, some of the ways this roster has really changed in the last few years because we didn't play any playoff games last year. So you're looking at the lineup right now. We haven't played a game with Jim Evans. We haven't played a game with Prince Ardley or Roussel or DeBona for that instance or Juan Galindo. So really the majority of this lineup we have not really seen in action, and I'm excited to get to it. Bottom of the first, 2 outs, first at bat for Jeremy Okoro this year. And he will send it over to the right side, and that'll be our first hit. Toronto had a hit in the first, but couldn't score. And then it'll be Jim Evans, who came over from Toronto at the trade deadline last year. And he's going to hit one, and that'll send Okoro to third as well. So we will have runners on the corners with 2 outs. That's going to bring up the first baseman, Prince Ardley. And he's going to hit one up the middle, and that will get through, and that will be your first run of the year, 1-0 your score here in Oakland. And it looks like Ardley gets thrown out going for 2, but we do score a run in the first. Top of the second here, 2 on, no outs. Mike Drake in a little bit of a pickle here. It's going to be Xavier Nians, their third baseman. And he's going to hit one to center. And that could be a run for Toronto right back. Nope, they're going to load the bases instead with no outs. And it's going to be Mark Cox, the former Oakland A. And he hits one to left. That's caught by Okoro, but Piscino will tag for the first run for Toronto. That'll tie it up 1-1. And now with 2 outs in the inning and 2 on, Walker Jenkins will face off against Mike Drake. Mike Drake a chance to get out of this, having only allowed 1 run. And that's a walk, so that'll load up the bases again for Camden Kozial. And he's going to hit one to center, but looks like Roussel should be there. So going to the bottom of the second, this game is tied. Bottom of the fourth, 1 out. Prince Ardley drove in the runner his last time up. Now he bats with no runners on base. And he says, you know what, I'll just take another RBI. He homers to left field, and that makes the score 2-1. Victorian Roussel up next after the Ardley home run. He will ground out to second. Oh, but it's flubbed. So we will have a runner on base for Steve DeBona, our shortstop. And he hammers one. And that is going to get down in center. Roussel is a pretty good base runner, so a good chance for him to score from first on this DeBona double. And he will. And DeBona's going for third, and he will get there as well. So now with a runner on third and 1 out, it's up to Liddell Hungo to drive in DeBona. And he sends one to center. And that should be deep enough for DeBona to tag. Nice piece of hitting there by Hungo. And DeBona will score our 4th run, 4-1 your score. Top of the 5th, 1 on, 1 out. Mike Drake got some run support, but now he's going to have to deal with this order for the 3rd time. And Koziel hits one, and that could be a double play, but we're not quite able to turn it. And then it'll be Mike McCaffrey, who's going to pop out in foul territory. The new catcher, Galindo, is there. Halfway home, 4-1 your score. Bottom of the 5th now, Jim Evans to face Chase Hampton for a 3rd time. 2 outs. And Evans is going to tack on another run for us. That is an opposite field home run. So great games from these guys that we got at the trade deadline last year, Evans and Ardley. And we take the lead 5-1. I guess we just extended. I don't know how to commentate. I'm not Bob Costas. Pitching change now in the 5th. It is Dylan Collum coming in for Chase Hampton, who couldn't quite make it through 5. And Roussel greets him rudely. And who do we have on first? I think we have Ardley on first right now. He might come around to score, and he will. So 6-1 now your score. We could probably skip towards the end here. We don't need to watch all this. Top of the 9th here. This is a 7-1 ball game. I'm going to let Cephas try to shut this down, but we do have Pitzer warming as well. And that is going to be crushed. I believe that was Ramirez, and that is a home run. 7-2 now your score. Then it's going to be Piscino, who also crushes this ball. Cephas has looked a little bit shaky. And I think now we're going to turn it over to Pitzer with Skeeter. So Pitzer, a chance to close it out. Not a safe situation, but here he is coming out of the bullpen. He will face Skeeter, and he will get a strikeout. And so the final out is Xavier Nians. And he hits it to right, but Tyndall should be there. We win on opening day 7-2. A good, complete team win. Homers for Jim Evans, Prince Ardley, and Steve DeBona powered this squad as Mike Drake has a good start, and we turn it over to the bullpen. And it turns out we win on opening day while everyone else loses in the division. Stop the count. April 6th here, we do have some news pertaining to the team. Steve DeBona has inked a deal with us. This is a long-term extension that will buy out his ARB years as well as future free agent years. This age 31 and age 32 team option would represent his free agent years. He still makes the minimum this year, but this gets tacked on for 2037 through 2043. All right, fast forwarding to April 19th, just taking a look at this team a few weeks into the season, and it's been kind of weird. We're second in OPS, which is great, but we're only 9th in runs scored, so maybe we could find a way to sequence that offense. But that seems to be something that we encounter a good bit is, we're second in WOBA or WAR or something like that, but that doesn't necessarily convert to runs being scored. I'm not entirely sure why that is, but one reason why it could be is we just don't run the bases well at all. We don't steal bases either, so I think that could definitely be a part of it. If you're looking at a clear weakness, it's probably the bullpen. The bullpen has not been good so far, although I think it does have the potential to be good for us later on, but there is certainly some volatility only a few weeks into the season. We are 10-9, 4 games behind the first place Astros. May 1st, we are 15-15, 1.5 games off of the division lead, and I am perplexed. I'm utterly perplexed with this team. We have generally hit well. We do have guys like Juan Galindo, the new catcher, who is hitting 425 with a 500 BABIP. Obviously, he's not going to keep that up, but I mean, look at the pace he's on right now. My goodness, like, should I move him up higher in the lineup? I moved him up just a little bit up to the 8th spot. Maybe I should move him up to like there maybe, or something like that. I don't know. A 500 BABIP's a 500 BABIP. He's not going to keep that up. But you have guys like Bona, who has been brilliant, and Jim Evans has continued to be brilliant, and Victorian Roussel has been great so far, and I'm happy about all of that. The only guys who are really lagging behind a little bit are Jeremy Okoro hasn't been that great, and Prince Ardley hasn't been either, but otherwise the lineup is really clicking all around. And because of that, we are 4th in OPS, though still tied 10th in runs scored. It's the pitching. The pitching is, we're 13th in FIP. Our starters ERA is 6, though it's not terrible. We have guys like Spector and Martin and Drake who have been good. Medina and Luvano have been really bad. I can't understand Medina, man. We traded for this guy. Look how bad he's been for us. And look at his ratings, too. It's unbelievable. We may have to just, move on from him at the deadline. He still probably will have good trade value just because of the ratings, but golly, like, how bad is this guy? And then the bullpen, man. The bullpen is the craziest thing I've ever seen. I've never seen a bullpen this bad. Let's sort it by FIP. You can see if we sort it by FIP. Oh, Spector, Martin, Drake, Danny Mills is the long reliever. Luvano is here. It's really only Medina who's been that bad in terms of FIP. But look at the bullpen FIP. We don't have our best reliever, excluding Danny Mills, who is, long reliever, is Ward Sweetapple by FIP. His is a 4.73. That's not even good. Like, Cephas, Pitzer, Watts, Baudanza, like, those guys are supposed to be good. This is crazy. Like, Baudanza, 2.2 home runs per 9. Colt Watts is walking 6 batters per 9. Tyler Pitzer has been really, really bad. These are our high leverage guys. Cephas is another high leverage guy. He's been really, really, I just don't understand it. Like, do I need to just fire my pitching coach right now? I don't understand, like, how this bullpen could ever be that bad. And we are going to scour the waiver wire throughout the season for relievers. We particularly would like a right-handed reliever with options, kind of like Bob Morlock, who will be back in 6 weeks. But I don't even know what to do with this pitching staff because it is terrible. And it's a shame because the bats have been really, really good. There is one roster move I can make. I'm going to option down Jesus Perales. He's been getting these starts at center field for us against left-handed pitching. I'm going to send him down to AAA. And the corresponding move will be to bring back up Ian Kameyer, who has been lighting up AAA through the first month of the season, so he comes back to Oakland. And he can play center field versus left-handed pitching. I want to see what he can do, but otherwise, Roussel could just very well be the full-time center fielder the way he's played early on. May 8th here, our record is 20-17. We do have an injury. It is Ward Sweetapple with day-to-day mild shoulder inflammation. That is a moderate injury. And in that case, I think the best move is most likely just to have him on the injured list for the next couple weeks. The call-up is going to be Dakota Ralston to make his big league debut. He was our 2035th rounder, and he is yet to allow a run in AAA so far this season, so he will come up and play the same role as Sweetapple in our bullpen. May 15th here, we've started to calm down just a little bit and start to play a little bit like a normal baseball team. We are 23-20, a half game behind the Astros. I must say, in the early going so far, this division not as strong as it's been in previous years, and hopefully we can use that to our advantage. I'm going to go ahead and tinker with this lineup, and you might not like it, but I'd really like to play some of our hot bats more and our cold bats less, and we'll just try to see what we can do here. So the lineups look like this now, at least for the time being. We're going to experiment with Bona in the 3-hole. We're going to experiment with Victorian Roussel as the full-time center fielder. We're going to experiment with benching Okoro and Ardley versus righties because those guys have both really struggled this year. Instead, you'll see Kameyer in left versus righties, and then Rancer Waltz will play second base, which kicks Hungo over to third base. That's a big defensive improvement over having Evans at third and Hungo at second. So we'll try that to get better infield defense across the board because Ardley and Okoro aren't hitting well enough to justify it. I do want to give a couple shout-outs at this point in the season. Brendan Tyndall has been brilliant. Those are his stats. Jim Evans has also been brilliant. Those are his stats. Galindo and continues to put up impressive stats. A 180 OPS plus at catcher. My goodness, I don't think he'll keep it up, but still, that's crazy to think about. And in the rotation, Butch Martin has been the clear star of the show, having a great run with us so far. May 26th here, Ward Sweetapple is eligible to come off the injured list. He doesn't have any minor league options, so we're going to cheese it a little bit, and I think we're just going to give him a rehab assignment to the minors, and I'm doing air quotes here. That'll give us at least 30 days to think about what we want to do with him, because Dakota Ralston has come up, and he's only, pitched 5 innings, but he hasn't allowed a run yet, so I have to see sort of where he stands among the bullpen ranks. I had also been keeping an eye on the waiver wire, and I came across this guy, Brandon Antau. I'd been keeping an eye on the waiver wire all season, and this is the first guy to come along that made me say, yeah, I'll put in a claim on him. I know we needed a righty reliever with an option, and he has that, so we will have to waive and DFA somebody. And that somebody is going to be Nate Britton, who has walked more batters than he has struck out this year. He was decent for us in 2035, coming off a minor league deal that got him promoted to the big leagues, but this year he doesn't have it. He doesn't have any options. I think it is time to waive and DFA him to make room for Antau, and maybe someone will claim him off waivers. And finally, while we're tweaking with the bullpen, I'm going to move Colt Watts back into a stopper role and put Jaheim Cephas off of that. He just has not done well at all, and some of the stuff in his scouting report, as you can see, has gone down, which is a huge bummer for me. I wasn't worried about, ratings being an issue because he had a 1.91 ERA in 2035 with Milwaukee, but this is a guy who does have an option year left, but it's between him and Sweet Apple potentially, and Ralston as well for, lefty spots here in middle relief. We're going to move Watts back into a stopper role, particularly seventh and close game, with the option for middle relief as well. It is time for the June 1st prospect check-in. We are 34-25, tied for first place in the division, but now it's time to check in on the farm. Not too much news, to be honest with you. We're keeping Ernesto Oyola down in the international complex. He's probably not going to make his pro debut this year. The reason is because I'm running into something here where some of these young guys develop so slowly that because of roster rules, they have to play an A-ball even when they're not A-ball ready, and we're encountering that a little bit with someone like David Morrell, who's the number 76 prospect in the game. He's been pro for so long that the game won't let him play in rookie ball anymore, even though he's still only 20 years old, and now he's forced to play in A-ball, and as you can see, he's not very good in A-ball. Just kind of a bummer. I think definitely upping that development speed is something I would recommend. Up it a little bit from the default according to this game, because, I don't really think that's fair necessarily for him to be the number 79th ranked prospect and yet terrible in A-ball at the age of 20, almost 21. Alejandro Ambriz, kind of in a similar situation, although he's certainly holding his own. He's the number 52 ranked prospect. In rookie ball, by the way, we've got Nakamura still. I'd like to see him develop to the point that he can, play in full season A-ball next year, but I don't know about that. His development has been quite slow. According to our scout right now, and again, our scouting actually is only high, we're looking at 35 contact, 30 power, 35 eye, but that's about what it's been, that's about what it was 3-4 years ago when we signed him. So not much development there, not much movement there, unfortunately. And, sometimes it happens all at once, right? High A is probably the most interesting team for us. We do have a promotion here. That's Lufer Kellogg, who was our 2035 fourth rounder, a glove first catcher. Makes the move up from A after a strong start in A to high A. High A, we also have a lot of other guys from that draft. Jake Clark was our first rounder, a comp pick. I don't know. Looks kind of, as the kids say, mid to me. And then Bobby Baker was also in there. Again, as the kids say, kind of mid. Sincere Cabbage Stalk is here. You probably want to see that. He's doing well. I don't think it's going to be a promotion to AA necessarily for him, but he has done well. Speaking of AA, we do have promotion to there. That has been Edmondson, who is our 2035 second rounder. He looks like he could be quite good. Was off to a very good start in high A this year, so he gets the promotion to AA, where he is currently alongside Eric Finch and Ben Cowan. And then in AAA, we've got the sort of closer to big league ready guys like Sievert and JJ Friedrich. Mike Del Fosse is here as well. He's a guy who I think could maybe factor in as a utility infielder at some point. Maybe not this year, but we'll see. He could get the call-up. And then Cam Meyer is in the majors doing well, but still considered a prospect to me. June 10th here, we are 38-29. Bob Morlock now eligible to come off the injured list. He suffered a lengthy injury in spring training after we traded for him this past offseason, and we're going to give him a rehab assignment to the minors because of that. Sweet Apple also still rehabbing in the minors, and we're going to try to figure out our bullpen here sooner rather than later. Yet at the same time, we're also glad that that's the clear weakness of the team because that's probably going to be the easiest thing to improve at the upcoming trade deadline. June 23rd, I'm going to further tweak the lineup. Unfortunately, Liddell Hungo is now going to be the odd man out. He's really struggled. We've moved him over to third base, and that is his best defensive position for sure with his strong 75 infield arm, but he's just not hitting enough. I think you're going to see us move Jim Evans back over to third base to make move for Prince Ardley in the lineup versus righties, because ever since we moved him to just only lefties, he has hit really well, so we want to get him back in the lineup as an everyday player at the expense of Hungo and at the expense of our defense. So that's what the lineups will look like, with Ardley becoming the first baseman and Evans shifting back over to third. It's a hit to our defense, but it's a boost to our offense. One situation worth paying attention to is the battle between Ian Kampmeyer and Jeremy Okoro for that left field spot. Kampmeyer may very well be the long-term left fielder of the future, and if that's the case and we want to make that happen now, what we could do is trade Okoro at the deadline for some relief help. That wouldn't be the worst idea in the world, considering he's due close to $10 million in our money, whereas Kampmeyer gets to play for the league minimum salary for a while. John Fisher has reached out to us with our midseason review of our goals. This is very important. Remember, I'm on a one-year deal and trying not to get fired here. As far as team record goes, he's happy with where we're at. The goal is to make the playoffs. We are in position to do that with a record of 46 and 34. He wants us to improve stolen bases. I ticked up our aggressiveness in terms of stolen bases. We've gone from 13th to 8th. He'd like to see a little more progress there, but we'll see. Acquire a player. This is the one that really bothers me. He wants us to bring in a power hitter. We've brought in Jim Evans. Jim Evans has hit 21 home runs this year. I don't know what you want from me. Like, that is a power hitter, especially in this ballpark. Increase attendance, some progress there, but not totally happy. Fan interest, he's not happy with. And then international amateur fines, that's the one that's he's gonna find upsetting, because we traded Bustillo, so I don't think we're gonna get anything from our international amateur fines anytime soon. But that's the review from John Fisher. Certainly, it goes without saying we need to make the playoffs or I'll be fired. Ward Sweetapple is ready to come back from his rehab assignment, so we're going to put him back into the big leagues at the expense of Dakota Ralston, who was optioned back down to AAA, which means our bullpen will look like this for now. Braden Jennings is definitely a guy we'd like to see in our bullpen, but he's been injured in AAA. That is a 5-week recovery time, and bummer, because he was actually pretty good for us coming out of the pen in 2035. I probably should have brought him up to the big leagues instead of Ralston. Jaheim Cephas, meanwhile, continues to struggle for us. We really had him pegged as a stopper. We liked him in that trade with Milwaukee, and he's just really, really struggled. So he does have an option. He is young. He still has an option. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to send him down to AAA as well to work on things. And the call-up will be Bob Morlock to make his debut with the big league club. Ooh, he's not a starting pitcher. He's a reliever. Now it's July 1st with a record of 49 and 37. Ian Kampmeyer has a sprained thumb. I think the move is going to be just let Okoro take over and have Kampmeyer basically be a bench outfielder for the next couple weeks and see what Okoro's got. July 11th is draft day. Our record is 52 and 42. That's a pretty good record, but we're 5 games off first place. And then the race in the AL wildcard is really tight as well. So we are by no means like thinking, oh yeah, we're going to easily make the playoffs this year. This is great. Like, this is a real struggle in the American League. The American League has some really good teams, and we just happen to be one of them. Our lineup has clearly been a strength. Everyone has really hit all year long. We're second in OPS, 6th in runs scored. The clear weakness is the bullpen. I mean, look at our rotation ERAs. They're great as well. Butch Martin and Mike Drake are under 3. You've got Robbie Spector under 4, and then David Luvano and Isdel Medina right around 4. And that's impressive for Medina because he had such a bad start to the season. So he's been pitching really well lately. Clear and obvious weakness is the bullpen. The bullpen's really bad. And so we need to work on that for sure. But, Baudanza has been nice, but everyone else, I mean, really just terrible bullpen all around. It's been really interesting to keep an eye on. But now it's time for us to draft. The Colorado Rockies will be picking first. They won the draft lottery this past winter. We will be picking 17th. We don't have any comp picks this year, but that is the highest draft position we've had since we started making the playoffs because, well, last year we didn't make the playoffs. We were 82 and 80. We've gone ahead and simulated until our pick. The first overall pick in the draft by the Rockies was Soiger Nelson, a shortstop out of Villanova. For me, it's going to be a pretty easy pick. It's going to be Dan Wellens. He is a college pitcher out of Ole Miss. I like the 65 home run allowed potential. I think movement is probably the most important stat for any starting pitcher. Stuff is fine. Control should be fine. Hopefully that's his weakest now, but hopefully that could develop to that 55, which would be very solid indeed. And I like the durability here. I like to have a durable arm. I'm going to go with Dan Wellens, who should accept the slot value of $6 million. In the second round here, I'm going to complement that college arm with a high school bat. This is Eric Evans from Louisiana. Big power potential, contact potential as well, eye potential. Doesn't really have a position, could play a little bit of first base, DH type for sure, but he is also durable, which is nice. I just now noticed that. He's going to be our second round selection out of high school. Third round here, I'm going to go for Eric Nugent. He is a high school infielder. Again, good contact, good power, potential in particular. I like the personality traits here, high adaptability and high work ethic in particular. I'm going to go for him here in the third round. Fourth round here, I'm going to go for another infielder, and this one has a very interesting name. Arjaniz Tsit. I don't even know. I wouldn't even know where to begin with such a name, but he's coming straight out of JUCO, and I like the power potential in particular, and I think like Nugent, he'd probably be best suited for second base. We're going to go for him here in the fourth round. And in the fifth round right here, the last thing I will do is draft collegiate outfielder Bob Youmans. I like the 65 outfield range. That means he would have a shot of playing center. It's a fairly balanced hitting profile. Maybe not that great, but it's something. He could maybe have a chance to hit the big league level. We're going to go for Bob Youmans, and that will end this episode. I will see you in the next episode at the All-Star break.